what I want to say to everybody in the audience is it's been a day getting this thing set up. Double bookings and all sorts of other things going on. I mean, Clubhouse is kind of crazy. So you're all going to have to bear with as we make sure that this is okay. But essentially, what we have tonight and what we have today is, we've got a social experiment, if you will. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I am a scientist and excited to see if these two volatile compounds can mix. We're kind of having a virtual cage match. One moment, Stefan. This is definitely some performance art. It's kind of a mud wrestling spectacle, a boxing thing. It's not going to be docile. I know many of you here in the audience are critics, but I'm a moderator on Clubhouse. I kind of do my thing. We're going to go for about an hour. And as my Clubhouse friend Jaleesa likes to say, we're here for a good time, not a long time. This is most likely going to be at least a 2-round fight. So if somebody doesn't show up next week, it means one of these dudes forfeited. I'm not in any transactions with them, so please hear everything with this with an open mind. And full disclosure, I do help Simco out with a weekly art talk, but I'm going to be as fair and as balanced as I can during this conversation. You know, everyone's got their skeletons. We know this. This is obvious. But you know, we might get into some of those things. We might try and avoid some of those things as well. I'll try and be as fair as I can. And talking with Kenny, we asked, will it be good? I mean, who knows? This is an experiment. We're here to entertain. But, you know, this is a creator platform with a lowercase c. And so it's our prerogative in this room to run this space as we wish. So first, I just want you guys to say hi so everyone can hear your voices. And then I'll kind of explain what Clubhouse is and PTR and things like that. So, Kenny, you got about 30 seconds just to say hi to everybody.
We've covered that base. Oh, hello, everyone. Thanks for showing up. Let's get rolling.
Okay, Stefan, you want to say hello as well? Okay, I don't think he does. All right, so you may be new to Clubhouse. I do see a lot of party hats. You know, this is a really crazy app. You know, warn of all the scammers and tech people out here, green beans and blue check marks. If you want to learn more and figure out how to use this app, you can always go to the beginner's guide. There's a lot of follow for follow rooms that we can talk about later as well. I only mention this because Clubhouse is starting to look a little bit like our Basel art party out here, right? You know, it was really the ArtNet article on Clubhouse, I think, that really kind of set this off. So so now we have a lot of people here. So please step in for a moment, Stefan.
Good morning. So Kenny, this whole thing came about. You know, I've had Kenny blocked on all my social media for a while now, and every time I let him in for a second, he sort of takes a cheap pot shot. So he was, we were in the same room about a week ago, 10 days ago, and Kenny asked for a sidebar. You know, you can sidebar out and create a private room, and he's like, let's do a talk together. So I was like, okay, why not? This could be entertaining. So, you know, we set some rules, and, you know, we're just here to, I think, try to do this every Saturday as a weekly talk about each other, talk about the art world, talk about big themes in the art world, talk about whatever we like. So thank you for all joining. Kenny, I'll let you dive in.
Kenny, is that how you see this as going, this weekly thing?
Well, I mean, let's see how it goes. This one, I'm willing to do another one. I'm not ready to start making it a weekly thing. I'm teaching and writing, and I'm already behind on my deadlines. Why don't you describe what do you mean I've taken pot shots at you? Can you explain?
I mean, well, I mean, it's you're a pot shotter. You know, you're sort of an art troll. So you take pot shots at everyone. You know, so it's your.
Why do you have to? You're a bully and you put people down all the time, and you always describe yourself as a disruptor, but really, you're an art dealer. You're opening an art gallery. What on earth are you doing that's the least bit different from any other art? You've been criticizing art dealers for 15 years.
This is exactly what we expected. This is exactly what we were expecting.
You're a hypocrite.
Okay? So we've got we have Kenny saying some things, and we have Stefan saying some things. So now you can see that it would be nearly impossible to have these two have a conversation if we don't have some moderation. So let me explain some of the rules, okay? So, all right, let's get back to the beginning. Clubhouse And so now we understand why we have to be patient with Victor and his moderation technique, because everyone needs to have this explained. So you trusted me with this, so let's go through it. So when everybody, the art world, came onto Clubhouse, really after, I would say really Elon Musk, I've been hearing a lot of comments about how the freewheeling conversations have changed and it's kind of getting boring. And so people were really excited for this particular event because, yeah, they were going to get these two individuals having some serious conversations together. You will see them in certain rooms. I saw Stefan in a room. We see him in a room with the guy Whistlegraph Jeffrey all the time. Kenny's in some rooms that you'll probably see on his Instagram. But I'm now also seeing these people on these formal art panels, right? It's real very stiff. Everyone's talking about how it's like the art world's hegemony at play, right? But then now there are these rooms where like art panels must die that Eduardo did. So like, hey, Eduardo, give him a follow if you'd like. But this is the so-called culture of Clubhouse. So what is Clubhouse going to become? Are we going to be able to have like interesting freewheeling conversations? Is it going to become like just this really interesting or disinteresting kind of thing?
Victor, I'm going to interrupt you. People are here to listen to Kenny and I speak.
I get it, Stefan.
I love it, but we're big boys. We can actually have a conversation.
No, we're almost there. We're almost there. So here are the rules, right? What we're going to do is we're going to have each one of you guys go for a moment. We're going to go for about an hour. We're going to go for about 3 minutes, and we're going to take a little bit of breaks in between. Each round is going to be about 10 minutes. We're almost there, and we're going to try.
Victor, I'm interjecting you. Kenny and I are having a conversation. Kenny, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, let's just have a conversation, no rounds, we're just having a conversation, and I'm not here to attack you. I respect anyone that makes a foray into the art world. I remember being critical of galleries when I first started 30 years ago about how exclusionary the art world could be, how hierarchical the art world could be, and how conservative the art world is. So in any event, I mean, you come out attacking me, but really we're all in the same art world. There's a lot of things you do and you criticize people for that I see you partaking in yourself. And I mean, even talking about artists that you've been promoting since the onset of your career: Parker Ito, Corpoor, Christian Rosa, Petra Courtwright, Mark Horowitz, Zachary Armstrong, Ibrahim Muhammad, Dan Reese, John Baptiste Bernadette. Again, like, I've been involved with all kinds of artists myself. Some do better than others, some not. But I don't grandstand and beat my chest saying that these artists are going to reach millions and millions of dollars and you have to buy them and you should buy my Trust Me special and all of these types of things. So I guess I have some issues with the way that you characterize yourself.
Kenny, do you drink milk by any chance? Are you a milk drinker?
Let's stick to art.
No, but I'm serious. There's a question. Do you drink milk? Do you put milk in your tea?
I don't drink tea.
Do you drink milk in your cereal? Do you have milk in the fridge?
Stefan, keep it. Let's stay on point.
Well, we would be
able to stay on point if we had.
Victor, stop.
And Stefan, I'm just trying to help you guys out, and I think the audience needs this as well. So what I think, Kenny, I think Stefan is trying to do is he's trying to ask you if you believe in this metaphor. So if you can please go ahead and just be frank with him, and I think you can say
what I don't understand the metaphor.
Well, run with him for a moment. Do you put milk in any kind of system, like whether it's cereal or a cup of coffee?
Do I put milk in? I just don't even understand the question.
Victor, basically, Kenny, you bring up concepts that like an outdated bottle of milk in the fridge. You bring up things that are like old history.
Like what?
If you want, you have not had access to what I do in years because I frankly don't trust you to have visibility on anything I do. So if you think I bully people, you don't even know what artists I represent anymore. You don't know what artists I work with. You know, your information is.
Educate.
I mean, I work with many artists. Parker Ito, I never worked with. Christian Rosa, I never worked with. I bought a couple of paintings from them. So, like, you're basically in like 5 years ago. You know, the world has changed. Things have upgraded. If you want to ask,
a gallery now. Congratulations.
I am. Thank you very much. I'm very excited.
And you're going to be representing a stable of artists?
Yes, I will be.
When do you open?
I open on March 6th. So if you want, you can investigate that. If that's where you want to go, you can.
Well, go ahead. Tell
investigate.
me. Ed, go ahead. Tell me the artist.
You asked me. I mean, Ken Taylor. I'm opening with Ken Taylor, March 6th. He's an artist who lives in Bakersfield, Mexican artist. And you'll see the shows. You'll see them online. You'll visit them if you're in LA, if you want. And we have a whole program.
What's the next show after Ken Taylor?
The next show, I don't want to say yet. Why do you laugh? What's your
Because what's the secrecy? You complain always about these kind of people controlling information and not sharing things. I mean, I appreciate what you're doing. I think opening a gallery is a bold thing to do in this economic downturn. It's not secret. I'm speaking. I think it's courageous to open a gallery. I think it's fantastic. But in the end, I mean, I kind of feel that I went through the same thing myself 30 years ago when I criticized art dealers a lot. They're not open on Sunday when everyone is free to go to galleries. All galleries have the same kind of clinical, stifling architecture. There's a lot of unwritten rules that everyone is asked to adhere to. Nobody speaks about anything about the machinations of deals and how percentages with artists and who people are selling to. So I think that it's fantastic you're opening a gallery, and it'll be great for the landscape for more galleries to open in one of the worst health crises in 100 years and one of the worst economic downturns in the same amount of time. So all I'm saying is that after I criticized galleries myself so much, I've really begun to appreciate and care about the people that work for them because, like I said, for a small and mid-level gallery, failure is practically built into their business model because the artists are always jumping to bigger ships for more resources and better opportunities. So I'm with you, and I think it's fantastic what you're doing.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That's good. You guys are getting along. Is there anything in particular, though, Kenny, that you feel that you didn't get an answer to that you first brought up? I mean, you called him a bully, but he's actually been quite nice from the conversations I've had. Can you describe that for me?
Well, I just think, like you see, he just went off. He's attacking people all the time. And I just think there's ways to be critical without being to attack people for reasons that make no sense.
Well, you both
I mean, that's rich, Kenny. You basically have a column that attacks people on a pretty consistent basis, quite broadly. That publicly actually names them out, attacks them. I don't ever name anyone out. I discuss a system and the inefficiencies of the system, how a system can be improved. I never mention galleries specifically in name or institutions. I discuss the structure of the business and how I think it can be improved and made more efficient and pragmatic and beneficial to both artists and owners.
You tell me what your gallery is going to be doing that's different. The name of 5 differences in your gallery program that's different from any other art galleries.
I think every single gallery is different from the other. I think Hauser and Wirth is different from Francois Geberli. I think Johann Koenig is different to ATM gallery. Every gallery is so specifically fundamentally different, has a different scale, a different agenda, a different character who runs and operates it, a different structure. So is there going to be something particularly different to my gallery and others? Yes, there will be. I probably won't get accepted into art fairs very easily. I probably won't make the best institutional relationships because there's a bias against me. So those are 2 differences. Because the business has a certain understanding or thought about what I do. So maybe
why do you think there's a bias against you?
Well, it's not against me. It's just I have an operating sort of mechanism that is different. The way that I structure my business is different. The way I work with artists is fundamentally different. I finance artists. I buy material. I don't consign material. So I have a different structure and a different strategy, which is pretty fundamentally different to how most galleries operate. Now, I don't know how it's going to work having a gallery because I might operate in a more conventional way. That's to be seen. I don't know. It's unknown to me. And I might apply to art fairs. All of this is unknown. All I know is that I had to open a gallery and provide artists exhibition opportunities because one of the weaknesses in my system is I could not do that. I would have to rely on third parties to do that. So opening the gallery and also opening the sort of quasi foundation space I'm opening in Pasadena will provide artists exhibition opportunities and spaces to perform what they enjoy performing, which is putting on shows. So I look at the gallery as a service, additionally, that I provide the artists in addition to the financing.
Stefan, can you mute your phone? It looks like somebody really wants to get a hold of you during your talk.
They do.
So, like, I saw a show that you did. I saw a film you were in talking about core poor. You were just boasting that you came to a studio and everything was shit. You told him to clear out his studio and throw it all away, and you would help him to make the content, devise the content of his art. Then I think you were involved in a foundation called Depart, which I think may have departed. And I went to see an exhibition, I must have been 5 or 6 years ago in LA, and you jacked the primary prices up for this young emerging artist to $200,000. And in this TV show I saw you do, you were mentioning how that you sold this work for ever increasing prices. I think that kind of behavior in the primary market for a young emerging artist can and is very detrimental to their career.
Stefan,
let's cool it with the sound effects.
Stefan, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I think Kenny, you're an old man who brings up old ideas, and you're regurgitating.
We're the same
things.
generation.
I know, but I'm younger in mind and spirit.
Really?
Speaking of being younger in mind and spirit, I mean, Stefan, you seem to be moving or making plays in the crypto world. Kenny, do you feel like that is something that Stefan's just hopping onto, or do you think, or do you agree?
Kenny, you're very good at regurgitating old things that have been
these are all quotes from you. I watch you speak on TV. All you have proxies buying art for you. You're yelling and screaming and accusing me of being old. I never said I'm not young. I'm old. Big fucking deal. And I've been in the art business for 30 years and given shows to William Popel, Rachel Harrison, Cecily Brown, Catherine Bernard, Wade Guyton.
Give me a history.
A history is what you should be doing the speaking.
Let's not talk over each other.
Not your screaming and yelling and beating your chest, putting me down for being old. I'm old.
Give me your address. Give me your address. I'll send you a Medal of Honor.
So you okay, listen. I am going to use sound effects.
Oh, come on. I am
going. Listen, he said that being young in mind and spirit, you're saying you want to do it a different way. You gentlemen joined each other on this stage, and the crowd needs to have some certain reinforcements for certain pieces. I'm not going to overdo it, but what I am going to do is I'm going to try to lead us through this conversation as best as we can.
Let's invite some speakers to stage. Let's open this up to an audience, because Kenny and I are just going to take ridiculously stupid slug shots at each other that are actually boring and meaningless to this crowd. So let's bring up speakers.
I agree that we should bring up speakers. There are a couple of there we go. You guys are You guys are really, in my opinion, doing a little free form action when I think people kind of expected maybe a little bit more rigor or framework.
Victor, stop. We're opening this up.
Fair enough. Don't say I didn't warn you.
Okay, Sebastian, go.
Hey guys, this is
one at a time.
It's sounding a little bit like the New York housewives of the art world. I think you both have done amazing jobs, each one in your own way. I have no idea at what point you decided to fight each other. Why don't we fight each other in terms of concepts, not past history, but the future of the art world today, and we debate on what could be interesting of everything that's about to come. We can touch NFTs, but also let's touch the foundations of the arts and see what is there to be rescued. What will the future art look like? That's what I think we're all here to listen to. You guys, I'm sure you can hash out the fights for past stabs with some drinks later on.
I won't be having drinks with Kenny Schachter, but
let us not crowd the stage.
Oh my God, guys!
You guys are trying to create chaos, so we're not going to crowd the stage. I'm going to mute people. This is not how we do it.
Let him go, man. Seriously,
Victor, if you don't open this up, I'm leaving. Victor,
you almost lost me.
Victor, if you don't open this up, I'm leaving the stage. So stop.
Dude, please, Victor, just let him go. Save us, buddy.
Yeah. I'm out if you don't stop, Victor. Okay, keep
Fair
going.
enough. I hear where you're coming from, Stefan.
This isn't the Victor show, bud. It's
Don't say I didn't warn you. Don't say I didn't warn you, Servi. Sounds
Okay.
good. Keep going. All right, Sebastian, you were saying.
Yeah, so I'd love to hear Kenny and Stefan think of the future of the art, how it's going to happen. What do they think? We can start with NFTs as a revolution, but let's not think of them just as technology. How will they impact the traditional art world? Let's maybe focus there and hear their two opinions on that.
Well, I think I think the way Stefan embraced technology or social media has been great. And I think the future is more do-it-yourself and changing the nature of who the gatekeepers are to the art world. I mean, there's an NFT coming up at Christie's where people are bandying around a price of $50 million for this piece selling for, and that's just so stupid. And that's such an awful thing to even start to speculate about. I think selling digital art on NFTs is a revolution because it changes the dissemination of art for artists being able to sell their work. I think because we're smack in the middle of an awful crisis and a recession, there's more spaces that are available, storefronts, than ever before. So I think it's an opportune time for artists because they can't rely on the gallery system for opportunities to take matters into their own times, like in the 90s in the recession, and for people to just try to do things themselves and people to act more in a sense of community than we have been thus far, but people just trying to do things to help each other and find galleries, as we know them, are 125 years old, more or less, and they're certainly not the end-all, be-all. And in fact, I think they have a lot of problems. And now is the time. I mean, online viewing rooms, it's the most ridiculous thing that the art world embraces technology, and you can't even call them glorified websites because they're websites. There's nothing glorified about them. So I think we have to employ technology as a tool to spread art and to create opportunities for people from all walks of life and all disparate regions to get a foothold into the system.
Stefan, do you see Gagosian going after Beeple and trying to represent him? Do you see galleries being able to offer something different that they didn't before to try and attract artists who might be thinking of going into the blockchain instead? And in your own gallery, is this something you're thinking of incorporating?
Yeah, well, I think what galleries do is they provide provenance and they provide context. And this is, and honestly, this is the reason I'm opening a gallery, because it's a weakness in my system. It's a chink in my system, and I've seen it, I've dealt with it, and it's been a difficult thing to deal with. And I reluctantly open a gallery because it is a very risky enterprise. But galleries provide provenance and structure. And I think, Beeple, I mean, Larry's a brilliant guy, and Larry is always on the front of things. So I don't think it's will he represent people? I don't know. Could he? It's possible. I think anything is possible at this stage. I mean, that's the thing about art, is we don't actually know what is possible and what is impossible. When you first looked at Takeshi Murakami at the very beginning, or Nara, I don't think anyone ever thought that they would go to where they went. So I think it's very unknown, but the galleries provide an infrastructure that will eventually monetize digital art or crypto art in some way, shape, or form. I think some of the interesting things that are complex is, if you look at how digital art is sold, is the smart contract basically gives a percentage to the artist when it's traded in the secondary market. So the question is, what is the relationship between the gallery and the artist in a crypto world versus in the physical world? So in the physical world, you take a painting, you sell it, you remit payment to the artist. In the digital world, who gets paid? Does the artist get paid in the MetaMask wallet? How does payment get remitted to the gallery if the gallery provides services like provenance and marketing? So I think we're going to move towards sort of a bifurcated business where you have, on the one hand, a gallery system that is traditional, and then effectively an agency system, very similar to the movie business, so the music business, where you act as an agent on behalf of the artist in helping them market, structure, strategize, negotiate deals. And then actually the artist is the one who pays the agency, as opposed to the agency, in the case of the art world, paying the artist. So I think you're going to see a lot of economic structures develop, thinking around how to monetize and how to allocate payments and capital in this new system. We're pre-law in it as well, so we don't know. But I definitely see a decentralization of distribution, which is greatly beneficial to empowering artists to take more direct control over their markets and their distribution, which I think will be a fundamental shift in the business that'll put a lot of pressure to the traditional business in ways that are unknown at this point.
Quick question. Stefan, what is the use of a dealer in this case if the process has been simplified for an artist? You know, more people are buying what they like because that gate hasn't been corrupted yet by a lot of the art world glitterati, if you will. And the NFT has its own provenance. So why does an artist, specifically, you know, a creator of their own brand, why do they need the gallery for any type of association when the gate is already open for them to walk directly through?
Well, I think there are all kinds of artists. There are artists who may not need a gallery, and there are artists who might need a gallery. It really depends.
None of them need a gallery, to be honest.
Yeah,
none of them need a gallery.
That's where you're wrong.
No, I disagree.
Hold on,
I disagree.
Wait a second. I'm on the panel and I have something to say. I think that digital art and viewing rooms and online intercourse with art is fabulous, but nothing will ever substitute standing in front of a work of art. And galleries provide an integral role in helping artists shepherd their career and keeping archives and presenting exhibitions. And one of the greatest things to have no art fairs for 1 year, which has been in a way a godsend for everyone to get off the bandwagon for 5 minutes. There's been I believe, from what I've seen from my own experience going to galleries locally in New York, there's been an increase in traffic to people remembering what galleries are and what role they play and how important it is to have physical shows of art in galleries. So you just can't. I'm all for other methods of opening up the system to let people grab opportunities and get rid of the gallerist controlling accessibility to artists that are super in demand. But you cannot make a sweeping generalization and dismiss galleries. Galleries are fantastic and they're free above all else. So it's silly to just say galleries have no role.
You know, it's interesting. I got an email from an artist in Mexico who has made $540,000 in the last 8 months selling crypto art on different platforms. And he was asking me if I'd work with him for representation. So I think artists need someone to help them contextualize their work, finance animations. You know, some of the digital assets that are going to have to be produced are not going to be like you take a JPEG and you load it up to Nifty Gateway and put it and price it and sell it. They're going to be a lot more complex. They're going to require production. They're going to require AR or VR. They're going to need production funds. The artist is going to have to raise that and come up with more complex deals. We're not going to be able to get away with just sticking something up and selling it. We're in a sort of a speculative frenzy right now. But as it develops, you're going to require much more sophisticated products to basically be delivered to consumers or collectors who want to collect. And that's going to require capital. It's going to require marketing. You know, you can put something on eBay or you can send something to Christie's. There's a totally different marketing platform. So I think the gallery provides a marketing platform that supports the artist. I think the artist has a lot more power in this environment because the way the payment systems work in digital, essentially, it's more efficient in many cases to pay directly an artist to their MetaMask wallet because a lot of these smart contracts and these platforms essentially provide artists a profit share in secondary market trading that's automated. And I don't think galleries will be able to manage that from an accounting perspective because it'll be a bloody mess.
And that's where
I mean, I have to be, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm in agreement with Stefan and Kenny that while, you know, we may think that galleries are unnecessary or dealers are, but there just are certain artists out there that aren't responsible or don't want to be responsible for having to handle that sort of administrative or curatorial work. And, you know, galleries and gallerists build context for it. There are artists that I think will be able to use this, you know, new platform or community in the future, marketplace, the centralized marketplace, call it what you will, to do things for them that, you know, they don't necessarily need a dealer or a gallerist. But at the same time, I think the great thing about what that looks like in the future is that, you know, there's a space for everyone. And I think we all in this conversation, even the listeners, all agree that, you know, we believe in art and the artist, and a platform or marketplace in the future that benefits and is built towards the, you know, providence and success of those artists, I think is healthy, and eventually, you know, can provide everyone here with something.
Anyone who paints or makes sculpture needs a place to house it. You cannot show paintings or sculptures digitally. And by the way, I have some digital works being released on Tuesday on Nifty Gateway. I may just add before I get thrown out of my own room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I say?
Why don't we go forward with KJ? KJ, your mic's a little hot, by the way.
Can you guys hear me? I'm at the beauty supply store.
It's very loud. It's very loud.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm at the beauty supply store. I had to go get some weave. Yeah, I would say that you're throwing out the.
We got saved.
You're throwing out the baby. You're showing on the baby with the bath with the water. And who said saved? Why? I mean, Kenny, do we need to make shots?
Come on.
You know.
Let's not lose our sense of humor, please.
Yeah, Kenny. Well, Kenny, I allowed you to talk and make it seem like Stefan's the devil when we all know there are people who are doing the same thing as Stefan behind, virtuous actions. There's a gallery open in Soho that's flipping secondary market work, saying it's primary like a motherfucker right now. So I just think that, Stefan just happens to be the person who is, has a bullseye on his head. But I've seen all kinds of trifling shit from people who are respectable. So, I just think there needs to be some sort of art historical context. I run a gallery that, is very much about uplifting emerging Black artists through critical theory. That's something that, NFTs could possibly do. But right now it just seems like an Elon Musk fanboy club. And it's kind of like giving me all...
I think
Eduardo, please.
Alt-right. I think she wants to say it's giving us alt-right feels, which is a criticism that I've heard KJ make before. Additionally, I really want to have discussions in the art world that are not just centered on a tool, because let's face it, crypto is, at the end of the day, just another tool. Will it fundamentally augment the way in which we deal with ledgers and the rest of it? Yes, if people adopt it. But the way that we have these crypto evangelists every 5 seconds on the internet trying to sell us something that is very non-complex, something that is very non-difficult to understand, as a pill that we must all swallow, is starting to get a bit trifling. But the question that I would like to ask is, what was the past of the art world? Because everyone is trying to become a diviner of the future, something that is immutable and we already live in.
Eduardo, this is Eva.
You're going to have to repeat that question, Eduardo. That last question, it was a little bit ununderstood.
Okay, the question is the following. What was the past of the art world? So where are we now? In relation to what is the state of galleries in the present? Because there's a lot of discussion about what it's going to look like in the future.
Galleries are very prosperous today, in my opinion. They have used technology. It's lowered their cost of doing business. The last year, they've understood that they don't need to go to art fairs to generate revenue. Galleries I know in LA have made more money this year than they've ever made, and they've had a better quality of life. And as Kenny says, people have visited them. The gallery system is much healthier today than it was a year and a half ago. I believe. I think NFTs are basically like street art. They're like on the streets because people have access. But street art eventually moved into the gallery system to a large degree. I mean, Kors, Shepherd, Banksy, it sort of moved. It moved to some degrees, into the center because the money was there. But I think the gallery system is profoundly healthy at this point.
I think that's a great point, a really good point. I mean, it reminds me of Vito Acconci in the 70s masturbating under the floor in the name of dematerialization. And in the end, Vito told me himself that this kind of art was in conflict to the market, and the market sucks anything whole. I think some of the differences from when I started in the late 80s, there was a big money period in the art market with the people like Julian Schnabel going for crazy prices at the time at auction. And then in the 90s, there was a recession, which is way beyond the 2008 recession. And I may even say even beyond this terrible COVID crisis, where there must have been 300 galleries that went out of business in Soho alone. But I have to say, I mean, I think in those periods of great economic hardship, you see artists make art no matter what the economy is. It's a rock and a stream, and there's no obstacle short of nuclear conflagration that will ever stop artists from making art and gallerists and people from showing it. I think it's undoubtedly the sense of monetization and economicsism that's pervaded the entire discourse of the art world is atrocious, and it's stifling. And like, I agree that right now NFTs are like screen savers or stills from video games, and it's a joke. And the money being washed is talked about and swished around. You're having historic prices for artists that have no history. It makes no sense. And time is the great equalizer. And I think the most important thing that I can add is just that art is a slow burning organic process. And a lot of us have been around for years. As Stefan mentioned, I'm old. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm passionate and crazy in love with art. I do art with my family. I curate shows. I write about it and make it. And all of this stuff is really kind of superfluous to the core act of sharing information, teaching, being generous, being a little more humanistic than we've been today. But all in all, there's a lot of people here listening, and it's a good thing. So.
Yeah, and you also have massive auctions at Sotheby's where you auction 100 items and market.
Why? I just said a nice thing, and I've been collecting art for 30 years before you knew what art was. I have thousands of pieces, and I sell to make a living. 200 pieces over 2 years, and still have more than I want to talk about. And I sell for no reserve, so people can afford art that can't pay your prices of charging.
Gentlemen, let's go back to questions.
Yes, Sebastian, we'll go ahead. Serving the
gentlemen,
people,
let's go back to questions.
Okay, here's one.
Listen,
and you're a dealer who sells to dealers who don't even.
That's fantastic, because I love dealers. Let them.
Because you don't develop collectors.
I'm an artist. I don't sell to collectors.
On one day you're a journalist. On another day you're a collector. On another day you're a dealer. You're with the Nico Philbrook dealing. What are you? Collector, dealer, journalist, gossip columnist? You're a
criminal. You're a criminal overcharging people for art. You have a different price for every person you sell to, according to how much you can get away.
Kenny,
Stefan, here's a question.
Kenny, Sebastian, everybody hold on. Okay, I'm going to start. I'm going to be...
Kenny, for you, Kenny, it's
Exactly. Thank you so much, whoever said who's the ref in this room. I try to do my job, and then you guys tell me to step back. So what I'm going to do, serving, one moment, please. Tough Victor's coming out now.
Go to the corner.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to identify people who need, and I tried to give you the rules earlier. If I see you speaking too much, I will move you to the audience. I would like to have a stage where everyone can see everyone on the stage. So Dustin, Annika, I'm sorry. I know that the moderators brought you up, but I will bring you up shortly as I notice that people are talking too much. Sebastian, I notice that you have a lot to say and you've got some good insights. I will try to keep you around so you can help with some of these questions. Now, anybody else who keeps coming off of mute, I certainly will be moving you to the audience and we will be switching it around. If you have something interesting to say, I suggest you do it on 1 or 2 occasions because you will then have used your credits. Okay? Let's go. Kenny, continue. Theo, what up?
Thanks, Kim Jong-un, for allowing me to speak. Great dictator. I had a question for Stefan. I was wondering, did you think there's notable benefits to non-fungible tokens in relation to taxation and being able to avoid potential state charges or whatnot?
I'm not a tax specialist, so I can't answer that question.
Okay.
Can I chime in here?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may. I think nice Victor's back.
I think what's going on here and what I've noticed is that there's a disagreement between Kenny and Stefan between how they do business. And I think that both are concerned, or at least one of them seems concerned with like how that affects the artist and the negative effects that has on the art market. And I think what we're talking about is with KJ and Eduardo is NFTs, right? Like it's not a necessarily new technology, but in the grand scheme of things, it's new. And if you think about how people talk about an NFT today, it's like an overglorified Beanie Baby, right? You can't even hug it or you do. It's just like, it's whatever. It's digital art. It's funny. It makes no sense. But I do agree with Stefan that the technology that NFTs run on and smart contracts could potentially create a world or a marketplace where people like Stefan and Kenny can disagree on how they do business without it having negative effects on artists. And I think the question of what Kenny is raising is that maybe some of the tactics that Stefan raises, and I'm only saying this as an artist who has suffered, some sort of degree from the secondary market, is the existing system seems to be failing. And what's exciting about the new technologies that are arising is that it could create a healthier ecosystem where people continue to do business and disagree, and yet the artist isn't victim at the end of the day.
Fair enough, Lucian, fair enough. Does anybody else have any kind of comments towards Lucian or have a question directly for Kenny or Stefan?
A question for Kenny and Stefan. If we see,
let's go to
technology.
Sebastian. One moment. So we'll go to Sebastian first, and then Eduardo, you can have another question. Then I'll move you back to the audience.
So the question is the following: if basically podcasting allowed characters like Joe Rogan to have the most popular programs on the planet in terms of outreach, but at the same time modified the format in which content was delivered to people from a very packaged short bits to long formats in which were the focus on honesty, which was much more important. Do you see blockchain delivering similar levels of honesty and similar levels of decentralized power to both artists and new galleries that could run in it?
No, I think people you do business with provide that. I think blockchain provides I don't think it's a mea culpa moment. I think it does different things for different people. It definitely provides an ability for an artist to list something and sell it directly and be paid in a simple way. What the fundamental thing of blockchain technology, it takes a digital asset, it makes it unique. That's the real attribute that has a value proposition. It takes something that is reproducible and makes it individual, and that's fundamental. That's fundamental for a kind of production. But systems of trust are built between people.
I would like to say that people lose sight of the fact that you mentioned memes and these types of silly art on NFTs. Digital art has been around since the 60s, and the most extraordinary aspect of NFTs is that they give artists that have long been creators, and we're not talking about tokens, rarity. NFTs could be in editions of 500. I don't think it prefers any rarity on the object. We're talking about art, and one must never lose sight of the fact that for artists that have long created digital art that historically has never entered the marketplace, I don't know what the auction record is for a video, or a lot of formats have gone obsolete, but I think it's an absolutely tremendous shift for any artist that has. I've been making digital prints since the 90s. For artists that work in the digital realm, it's a fantastic new revolution in terms for them to be able to just get their work out, have their work seen, and above all, have their work bought and sold. And the fact that royalties, I've never been one to say that an artist should have an ongoing right in a painting that's bought and sold. It just doesn't seem to make sense practically. But with the smart contract, you can have a resale right built into the contract in perpetuity. And when people always, I never understand the battle about flipping art. If you buy something, you make a leap of faith, and if you reintroduce it into the stream of commerce, it should be your prerogative, as long as you're not harming anyone or you don't breach your relationship with the artist or the gallery by selling something instantly. But people in the NFT market seem to flip things the second they buy them. And in a sense, God bless them, and then the artist partakes in the profit. So that's an extraordinary break for artists that never existed before, that doesn't have to be policed, that doesn't have to rely on the honesty of anybody. It's just built into the transaction, and that's very cool.
I just want to say something. There's a lot of criticism like these things are stupid memes. So Lindsay Howard approached the creator of Nyan Cat, who basically about 10 years ago posted a video on YouTube, which got, no one looked at it, and slowly it got over 185 million views. And that Nyan Cat meme basically became the public mascot and private mascot of the Ethereum community. So when that meme launched on Foundation and sold this week for over $500,000. There's much more reference and history to a lot of these events that are sometimes maybe overlooked by people in the art world who don't understand like the culture from which they come. And I think if we think as consumers of content and consumers of artworks, in the last 10 years, so much of our mutual consumption has been through memes on the internet. So Lindsay went to the creator and said, look, why don't you create a cryptographic, digital, unique artwork out of that meme for which you had 185 million views on YouTube, were never paid for it. And the guy listed it and it just went crazy. And I think like once you investigate the things a little deeper and start to sort of understand, well, what actually is happening, maybe it's more interesting than it seems on the surface. Maybe it's not just a cat crossing a screen, just the same way that when Cory Arcangel did his video where he removed, all the elements and just left clouds in the Mario Brothers video, which was really a seminally important video in kind of this shift from manipulating a digital asset and removing items and then presenting it as an artwork. These are potentially sort of historical art moments that sort of appear, that are actually much more serious than they seem to be.
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw shade on NFTs or digital art. I was merely trying to make an example that there's much more to NFTs than just nifties or tradable digital works.
I would say one more thing. First of all, the nomenclature of calling them assets, I think basically they're artworks. But above that, I would say that we're all of a certain age, and I would say there's a good proportion, more than not, that are professionally involved in the art world and have been for some time. There was recently a study by Claire McAndrew that polled 3,000 of the biggest collectors in the art world, and only 20% of them have ever bought something online. And I called her up and said, how old are these people? I think one of the most crucial issues involved in this whole discussion is the fact that a lot of these buyers of these tokens are either crypto investors or kids, younger generations, people from 15 to 25 years old that have never gone to galleries. We're so busy with our heads up our own ass talking about all of these things. And these are people that couldn't give a rat's ass if we lived or died. And they're developing their own new systems, their own new patronage systems of how they can experience art on their phones. There'll be hardware that hangs on the wall. And I think it's an extraordinary shift that we're smack in the middle of, where the art world, for the first time that I could remember, besides Instagram, is opening up to a wider group of people that weren't able to access it before.
Hey, Stefan.
Can I add to that?
Yeah, definitely. Who's that? That's Badir. Or who's talking?
Yeah, that was me.
Excellent. And Badir, before we continue, just because people are adding more people to the stage, why don't we have Eduardo say something, then you can say something, and I'm going to move Lucian, unfortunately, back to the audience.
People are talking over.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So please, Eduardo, go quite quickly, and then we'll continue the conversation.
Okay. One thing that hasn't been spoken about is the fact that NFTs start off with a very high capital price, and a very similar. There is a castle. There is a party that proposes, and then there's a. Anyway,
I think that's Mark.
See, gentlemen, this is why I'm asking us not to continue bringing people to the stage. I'm trying to keep a tight stage. So I'm going to move people to the audience, and I will pull you up, and I will do this. Continue talking, Eduardo, please.
I was going to ask, because NFTs or crypto art, however you want to put it, has such a high, sometimes beginning capital price, has anyone thought of the long-term effects of continuously reselling a work? For example, at auction, if a work is valued way too much higher than the hammer price, or lower than a hammer price, that work can become burnt. Do you feel like that could also happen in the NFT space?
I think that's a good place to answer your question.
There's no such thing as burnt. There's price elasticity, and there's price volatility in any asset, whether it's a cultural asset, a commodity asset like oil, price instability and price volatility is present. It's present in cryptocurrencies, it's present in digital assets, it's present in art assets. I think these questions of like, if something goes down, do people get burned? Yeah, if you bought GameStop at 350 and it's 40, you got burned. But if you bought it at 40 and sold it at 350, you didn't. It's like, that's the market. It doesn't necessarily damage the company underneath. GameStop is still GameStop, still has thousands of stores, still is selling video games to kids. The artist, if the price goes up at auction and down at auction, still in the studio making work. He's the same fucking artist. He's not like changing the kinds of paintings he's making. He's not stopping making paintings. He's still making a living selling his art. He can still, if it goes for $1 million, he can still sell his paintings for 100,000. You know, it's the artist still has access to capital. In fact, the artists who get great visibility in the auction markets, they generally have established markets because they can always sell at prices significantly lower than that can sustain them for the rest of their lives. So I think this infatuation with price instability in cultural assets is kind of like a sort of a false moral pseudo myth that basically, I think it's bullshit basically.
Kenny, any thoughts on that?
Well, I agree. I think that on a certain level, if you want to reduce it to the most base aspect, it's like, it's for traders and flippers, it's the perfect instrument because you're basically divorcing the art out of the art and you're just selling the underlying nothingness, which is like trading money. And that's a shame. And I just think it's going to weed itself out. This is just it's all new. It's only been on people's, if you look at Clubhouse, 90% of the rooms are about NFTs, and this is going to die down.
How can you say I'm just sorry, I have to call you. How can you say it's a shame when you basically have to buy,
can I just finish what I'm saying?
When you buy assets with Inigo Philbrook, and it's a shame?
What? Stefan, why are you, at least I'm honest about things I've done, and I'm transparent, unlike you. I've heard 3 dealers just DM me that you haven't paid them for art you bought. I'm not taking pot shots. I'm expressing myself.
Invite them up to stage. Bring them up to stage.
Please, can I finish my comment?
Yes, please.
A lot of the discourse is about like people selling for 50 million. And again, I think I'm a digital artist. I have never been so grateful for a way. I have 30 years of digital art on my computer, and now I can show it and have a way to sell it without relying on a gallery to show someone like me who does a lot of different things that can't be easily digested by a traditional gallery.
Kenny?
I think that when people just start trading them for millions of dollars for kids, it's bullshit.
Kenny,
Art takes time.
Stefan,
established and canonized over time.
Stefan, before you jump in,
you're a secondary market dealer of blue chip assets.
Stefan and Kenny, before y'all jump in, I think we need to continue to hear the voices that you guys asked for. So Theo, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think a lot of the mania with NFTs at the moment is pretty hyperinflated because a lot of the people like spending $1 million on a CryptoPunk, say, are like probably like crypto whales who've held Ethereum for years. And, that $1 million CryptoPunk probably costs them less than $100,000 max, maybe even $100, So I think the value of these things is greatly different to a lot of the people who are observing it in the marketplace, and the people buying it are really just buying it for a bit of social media clout, and I don't think they particularly care at all for the aesthetic value. That might change with other NFTs, but with the stuff we're seeing now, I think it's maybe not a bubble, but definitely.
But who cares why they buy it? Like, why do we always have to decipher the intention or morality of people who buy things? Like, we're in a position to decipher the inner psychological state of people who buy art. They buy art. Some buy it for money, some buy it for love, some buy it for speculation, some buy it for decoration. This idea that we can administer these emotional states that collectors or buyers have when they contact art is ridiculous. The market is diverse.
You just said that we need to define a new system for collectors.
Kenny, let me talk.
Listen, one second. Mark, listen, gentlemen. Mark came off of mute and he's been trying to say something. Mark, do you have something you'd like to say?
Yeah, thanks, Victor. Part of the problem that I'm hearing this morning is the lack of acknowledgement that we're dealing with 2 different worlds. The art world is like a fishbowl, and those of us who have been in it for many years, we're in the same culture. We speak the same language. We've studied the same history. We go to the same art fairs. We go to art openings, and we dialogue with our colleagues. Now, when talking about this other world of NFTs and blockchain, yes, to somebody like Kenny and to me, when I look at the images up there, they seem ridiculous and insignificant. Whether they are or not is really irrelevant to the conversation, because these people don't know the history of contemporary art. They don't dialogue in the contemporary art world. So we're really talking past each other this morning and in this conversation. There needs to be bridges that allow the migration from the art world to successfully get into that NFT world and make sense of it for those in the art world. Because at least for the present, it's nonsensical in a lot of ways. And anyway, that's pretty much
So
what I
Mark,
to that, please?
Justin, you can add to it for a moment, of course. Mark, do you have a direct question, or maybe do you have a question regarding how can Kenny and
I'd like to hear Kenny's response. I think
yes,
Kenny's got
okay,
a very
perfect.
intelligent view of both these worlds.
Well,
Perfect.
I mean, I think that in due course, over time, there'll be a Bell's curve of quality that will make itself known. There'll be great stuff. We also have to understand that us people that have been in the art world for decades, these younger people that have been existing in the digital world of making art without access to the art world that we know, they have just they're having their time, and there's nothing. It's a fantastic thing because it broadens the base of what people are talking about, and it broadens the opportunities for people that never had opportunities. The only thing I question is just crazy prices, and I just think that those will settle like a market that's on its own volition, will work itself out over time. Art takes time. Art, when you see young artists in their 20s and 30s and 40s even selling for stupid amounts of money, it's illogical. And look, you could pay whatever you want for anything you want. I couldn't care less. But I've seen it happen. I'm old enough to have seen cycles. And even since like the early 19th century, there's been artists that have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars that have gone to next to zero. And we're going to see that happening in this space more than ever, because there's been a radical inflation in a period in the world where money shouldn't be pissed around and thrown around, when people are falling like flies, dying from this virus all around us, and people are starving. So it's obscene in a certain respect that people would pay crazy amounts of money for some of these things. But again, that's a free world, so you do what you please.
Justin, we moved you to the audience earlier. I apologize for that. But do you have some thoughts on this comment?
Yes.
Something direct and
yes.
Curt.
No, this is distinct to exactly what this conversation's about. And there, like Kenny's saying, there is a curve to the quality of art. And right now, because of this Clubhouse, because of NFTs, it's made by tech people. So inevitably, the art is not going to be great because it's tech people capitalizing on tech ideas. Now that the art world is involved during these conversations, we're seeing a merger. And I'd like to say that I'm a photographer, a fine art photographer who shows in galleries, and I'm putting my work on NFT to bring quality to the table. And just in the past 2 days, I've sold like $55,000 worth of work because the people are realizing the quality of work is there now. And as an artist, being in debt the past 10 years, this changed my life. This platform changed my life. And on another point, we're seeing a lot of wealth and abundance in the crypto world, which is why they're throwing around money, especially in a difficult time like coronavirus, because these people bought Ethereum when it was $1, when it was 10 cents. So they have unlimited amount of money to buy unlimited amount of art. So, we're in a world where the crypto people have abundance, unlike the world we're used to in the art world. And that's why we need to create the bridge. We need to communicate and build a dialogue, a language with the tech world, so we don't get left behind, and we could actually on-ramp to this platform in a way where we could treat it like a Squarespace shop and not like it's a mystified object. It's actually a space where we could create transactions like a website shop. And I think that's as simple as it could be.
I don't think Kenny nor Stefan disagree with you. I do think that Kenny has opinions about which websites he endorses or not. I mean, he says that he's putting some artwork on a website as well. Does anybody have any direct particular questions towards Stefan or Kenny to also continue getting the conversation going?
Well, what are the pros and cons to what we're seeing now? And I'm just curious from Stefan's side of what the pros and cons are, and Kenny's side of what the pros and cons are, so we could.
I'd like to move this conversation into a sort of another direction. I think we spent enough time on crypto and NFT. So let's have some other questions, if that's okay.
Definitely other questions from anybody. Please just say what you say your mind. I'm going to move Theo, unfortunately, to the audience, and then I believe Lucien as well, or Badir as well. But guys, continue.
Thanks, Kenny, for putting up with this goon.
Hi, I have a question for Stefan.
Go right ahead.
I followed you for probably 4 or 5 months now, so not very long. But you definitely seem like a big proponent of change. And I just want to ask a quick question about your entrance in the gallery world. It was a little disheartening when you were asked, what are the things you're going to do different? It was kind of, well, we'll see, it's new and all that. But I would think if you're that big of a proponent, you would have an idea of, things you're going to be doing differently.
I'm not going to do anything differently. I'm going to look at the galleries who have been very successful, who've run great operations, who've made lots of money. And I'm going to learn from them. I'm going to copy them, and I'm going to build my own system. It's going to be my own gallery system. It might have different. I respect what the galleries have done. There are things that they do that I think are not productive, and I'm going to change those. But they're not really visible things. I'm not looking to rewrite the code. Galleries are very efficient. They have learned a lot. They've adapted. Galleries have also opened up their programming. Galleries are on Instagram today. They're investigative. The young galleries are very adaptive today. There are different galleries operating today than there were 10 years ago. Most of the galleries 10 years ago closed. In New York, Gavin Brown, no longer in business. Andrea Rosen, no longer in business. Michelle Macaron, no longer in business. These were giant, mid-sized galleries in New York. They don't exist in the landscape anymore. So I think what's happened is the players like Nino Meyer, very smart operator, fantastic. Francois Gebali, very smart operator. The galleries really have become much more adaptive, much more intelligent. They're a different gallery system today because they've learned in order to survive and compete against the majors, they've adapted. So I think the system is ever evolving. Like I'm not looking to, I don't need to be different to the galleries. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I have a business that is very different in the art business than most people. That's my reinvention. The gallery is my position to try and conform to a system that has been very successful, that I've watched change and adapt. I've also watched the gallery system use technology like ArtLogic, like Arternal, which is a software management. It's a much easier time to be a gallerist today because of the tools. It's much less expensive because you can reach a global marketplace using tools. So I think it's a very different thing to open a gallery in 2021 than it is to open a gallery in 2015 or 2012.
I would ask this last question then, because what it sounds like though is one of the reasons you're opening the gallery, and there may be more. I'm not a big arguer though, was that your distribution channel has dried up. That you rightfully or wrong, right or wrong, you've kind of got that bullseye on your back, and I agree with a caller who said that before.
Is that a question or a statement that my distribution channel
I'd like to give
up?
my opinion about the gallery. I think galleries haven't changed one iota for over 100 years. I think basically the fundamental system of operation has remained exactly the same as it ever was. I think Instagram has been the great equalizer that I've seen outside of all this kind of digital art rhetoric and Clubhouse, etc. But I think there hasn't been a single website that was a platform started that had to do with art as its essence, like the one I write for, ArtNet, Art News, Artsy. They're all basically doing nothing that really add to the dialogue in a major way, in the same sense that I've seen Instagram become this wrecking ball and this great democratizer of inciting conversations between people. I've met literally hundreds of people from Instagram, and every time I give a lecture or a class, I always encourage people to get in touch with me, because if there's any way I can conceivably or possibly give advice or help anyone, it's my pleasure to do so. So I think that galleries are galleries. They have a substantial role in the display and dissemination of art. I think this whole digital world is going to be a great expander of the universe, because it's going to give people that have never had a way to have their work spread out far and wide. And there have to be fundamental changes in the gallery system, which they're not defined yet. I'm sure technology will have an impact on them, because in certain respects, we need change. And I don't see it personally. Stefan, though, I apologize. I didn't mean, I wasn't taking a pot shot. And I do wish you all the luck with the gallery.
My distribution channels have not dried up one bit.
Okay.
I have a very broad distribution system. We do a lot of business. I just think it's a service that one can provide artists because it's a weakness in my system. I'm not an idiot. I can analyze systems. I can correct my wrongs. I can see my shortcomings, and I can fix them. And I disagree with Kenny. If you speak to Everett, who's the CMO of Artsy, and have a conversation with those guys, and you get the data on what's happened in Artsy, for example, 500% year-on-year revenue growth. I have a friend in Cleveland, a woman who's 50, used to basically teach kids in the juvie system. What was her dream? To open a gallery. She went, she got an Artsy account, opened a gallery representing only Black artists. And that would not have happened without Artsy, without the technology, without the affordability of it. So I actually think technology has transformed the gallery landscape and enabled a much lower barrier to entry for galleries, which is good for artists because it enables them to take risks on artists as their technology and distribution reach has been reduced. So I think the traditional gallery system, I say traditional, the incumbent players who have been competing against each other at scale, the mid-size, Gavin competing with Hauser, Michelle competing with Zwerner. These guys came under tremendous pressure because they were essentially fighting over the same product lines, competing over the same product lines, and they just were outgunned and outcapitalized. One of the most interesting talks I listened to on Clubhouse was the CEO of Postmates, who's a German entrepreneur, came to America and ran a great company. Postmates, many of you have used, is a great product as far as food delivery goes. And he said one of the most interesting things. They were a week out to IPOing, and basically they were contacted by Uber and they made a deal. They sold to Uber for $2.6 billion. And he was faced with this moment. He was a competitor. He was running a great company. And he said, you know what the difference between me and them was? It was their ability to raise cash and capital better than me. That's what it came down to. So I think in the traditional system, and the traditional system, I don't mean the entire system, in the incumbents who've been in the business 20, 25 years, there is an issue because they are effectively competing against big players of huge capital, whether that's Gagosian, Zwerner, Hauser, Pace. And they're in the same pool. But there is an entire group of galleries that are emerging out of nowhere that have become huge players very quickly. And I think these galleries are built on platforms that aren't like jerry-rigged websites designed by developers who are friends of theirs. They're quite sophisticated. They've got inventory management systems. They've got selections of inventory management systems. They've got CRMs tools, customer relationship management tools that galleries didn't even think about 10 years ago. So these players today, their DNA, because not just the technology of NFTs and the blockchain, but the actual software innovations that have occurred in CRM management and all this kind of thing, specifically targeted towards the art business, which is a much bigger business, have provided a huge advantage and a transformative effect on the industry, in my opinion.
I mean, I just don't think of it in terms of IPOs and talking about art as products. And Artsy has raised an enormous amount of money, probably in excess of 50 million. And I doubt they've made it back to their high watermark of breaking even. And I love art, and I'll probably end up losing money for the rest of my life.
You're an art
trying to spread it out in the little grassroots way that I do and believe in, curating shows, teaching about it, and making it. So I just think we're in two different universes, and our spheres don't overlap terribly much.
You're an art dealer, Kenny. I mean,
Stefan,
what's this like?
Don't start pigeonholing people, because that's what's wrong with the art world. People need to do what they want. They don't need people like you stamping them, categorizing them, and making these assertions about, do whatever I want. I do 10 things, and you're not going to change my thinking about it.
No, exactly. But it's like, I'm an artist. I'm a photographer. I'm an
artist.
Great,
congratulations.
I'm an artist. I'm not a dealer.
Fantastic.
What can I tell you? I mean, okay, great. You're a moral guy. You like social justice.
So, FYI, gentlemen, I'm sorry.
Let's call this a day, because you said an hour, and it's an hour and 20.
Yes, exactly. I was about to say the same thing, Kenny. Before you,
I think we should keep
Chef.
we should keep the room open. Kenny can leave, and we've got a great audience here, and we can continue the conversation. So I'd like to keep the room open, and Kenny can skedaddle.
Understood. Okay, there was a lot of things, a lot of notes I took on this interaction between the two. I can see that there's a lot of interaction, like a lot of things to take into consideration. Kenny, a couple of really serious questions. One, would you be willing to come back and do this again next week after we have a conversation regarding how this one went?
I don't know. Good question. I don't know how fruitful it is to speak with someone who is just fundamentally biased against you. And
you called me,
Stefan, please.
Kenny, you called me a criminal in front of 850 people.
You will have a chance to respond in kind. Kenny, would you be interested in coming back next week to discuss? And please, don't trigger Stefan.
I won't. You're not a criminal. I apologize. I take that back. It was in the heat of the moment, and I apologize. Whether this is productive and warrants more time out of my schedule, I just not ready to agree to that right now.
Understood.
It's too antagonistic.
If you were
I have
able,
a family, and I'm teaching, and I'm writing,
understood,
and I'm way behind in my deadlines. So
understood. If you
I'm
were
open, we could do it once a month or something. Okay. Would make more sense than once a week. If you were able to, I would agree. I would agree with that as well, to be honest. But would you agree to maybe just do a round 2 next week, only to kind of get it
once a month, Victor? We do once a month. Once a month is good. Yeah, I'm good with Kenny.
Okay.
And I got 10 more minutes, so
yes. And would you be willing to agree to some frameworks? Because to be frank with you,
let's keep the conversation, Victor. Keep the conversation rolling. We don't need to discuss frameworks in front of 850 people.
I understand.
Give me a break. I'm not in school here. Come on, let's go.
Okay. Kenny, yes or no though?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. And then last question: are you leaving right now?
No, I'm here for 10 minutes.
Okay. See, Stefan, if you just give me some patience, I can get through this quickly. Ken, I'm moving you to the audience, and we're going to keep moving it on. Since we have only 10 minutes with Kenny, I'm going to move anyone who's spoken other than Sebastian, and I'm bringing a couple more people up.
I just have a quick question that
100% go right for it.
Great. So just following the the last conversation that was speaking about roles and pigeonholing and generalization and what these roles are in the art world, etc. What my question is just a little bit more open is the role of the critic. Like, how do we see the role of the critic evolving in its current state and in the future? And I don't want to bring NFTs up again, but just as that kind of develops, the role of the critic in that sphere as well.
I mean, I think, again, there's no money for critics. So it'd be really interesting if there was some kind of format, some kind of pooling in the industry where you could literally create a platform and every gallery and big in size would, based on the percentage of revenue, come up with a percentage of revenue that would basically be assigned to a pool of writers and critics that could then freewheel throughout the system to create critical writing. I mean, this is one of the poverties of the business. The writing, the critics, they've been driven out of the system because there's no money into it. So I think what could happen, again, here is where the technology of blockchain could be very powerful in creating some kind of system where we could contribute to a shared pool to basically fund writers to have sustainable wages, to actually be critical functionaries in a system that has a huge poverty of critical thinking and writing and engagement and distribution. So I think this is one of the problems that we should address and can address and think about how do we solve it.
Okay, I could say that, people have relative notions of what constitutes success, and it's not money for everybody. And there's teachers teaching school, there are policemen and policewomen policing, and people delivering the mail, and people do things for different reasons and with differing expectations about how they need to prosper. If you look admittedly, critics have lost their teeth largely at the expense of collectors that are opening private museums in either jurisdictions that don't need them or out of the way places for tax breaks. And they're giving legitimacy and imprimatur of credibility on artists in the marketplace. And that's really tragic. I think you look at Jerry Saltz and Roberta Smith, and you have a perfect kind of dialectic. You have Jerry Saltz, who's probably the world's most populist critic ever. And he uses social media, and he has a humongous audience. And then you have Roberta Smith, who I think is probably the greatest writer on the planet today. And she writes in the New York Times, old traditional outlet. And yet she promotes her writing on her Instagram account. And I treasure every word she's ever written. And I haven't missed a word that either of them have written. And I think nothing's going to stop people from writing in the same way that nothing will stop artists from making art, taking well into consideration. Most of them will never really profit from their work, but that's not going to hinder anyone from doing it because they do it from love and passion. And I don't see how, writers could charge for their writing, etc. But in that way, it is what it is, if that makes any sense.
Makes sense.
Can I ask a question about art?
Glenn, for sure. And if you'd like to direct it towards Kenny, since we have him for only a brief moment of time.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I enjoy having Stefan and Kenny in this room. They both have a lot to say, great opinions, whether you like it or not. I love hearing both of you guys. And about the NFT, I've been listening to Clubhouse for like the last month, and I'm really bored with the whole NFT conversation. Every art conversation leads to that. And while it may be a fascinating phenomenon and something that'll be great in the future, we need more talk about art in these rooms. So the question I have is, since the age of Instagram, what I have observed is that the art that is getting a lot of attention is work that can be absorbed in a glance on your phone. I call it graphic design art, or this sort of neo-surrealist art. So you have your Cause, you have your Nicholas Party, Julie Curtis, Banksy, this whole kind of direction of art. Now, as someone, I'm an old timer, I'll admit it, although I try to keep up and tech literate, and I'm dealing in a lot of art that's, made in the last week. But what I love is Robert Ryman. I like Richard Tuttle. This is the kind of art that does not come across on your phone, doesn't come across on Instagram. And I think we've got a whole generation of people who are learning a different visual language because they're looking at stuff in a digital form and not spending enough time looking at the objects. So here's the question, Ken. Do you think that this is the future and it will keep going in this direction, or is there going to be a pendulum swing, as we often have, towards work that is much more ephemeral, that you need to stand in front of, you need to touch?
Well, it's a great question. And I think it's funny because I always say that I never get to speak about art because one of the things I do is work in the art business. And most people don't even want to talk about the art anymore. They just want to talk about who's showing where and what the monies are. But at the same time, in the last, there's been more growth for artists of color, Black artists, people of different sexual proclivities. The floodgates have opened and there's more opportunities at the same time than ever before in the 30 years I have certainly been in the art world. There's a great show at the New Museum on this issue that just opened. So, there's always going to be art for people that have the appetite to see it and experience it. Forget consuming, forget money, forget coins, IPOs, dollars, millions, trillions, gazillions. It doesn't make a goddamn difference. In the end, we're talking about art. That's what binds us. That's the only shared territory on this stage today. We both are involved in art professionally. Obviously, I can't deny that anyone here doesn't love art and care about it on some level. So really, I think we're going to see the best art ever. Art is great, and it always has been. I hate when people say, in the 70s, there was no great art, or in the 80s, or whenever. Art is the human condition, and it continues to evolve. It will always, art that doesn't fit on a screen or doesn't show well digitally is always going to be made and will always exist, and we will always find a way to see it, whether it's in a traditional gallery, the way we know and love them or hate them today, or any other means. It's always going to happen as long as there's a space to put it in, whether it's inside, outside, on Mars, on the moon, wherever. Art will be made, art will be seen, art will be written about, and art will be enjoyed. And I think that's a good place for me to bow out and thank you all. No bad intent. I didn't mean to call you those things. Simchowitz, and no hard feelings. And thanks for having me. And
Kenny,
thank you everyone for listening. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
I'll see you next month.
If I can just throw.
Okay.
Wait, Tony, hold on a second. Let's say goodbye to Kenny properly.
Kenny, I'll see you next month. We'll
okay. Let me hear Tony, because he's been waiting for so long.
Excellent, and thank you so much, Tony. I apologize for being so rude. Go ahead, Tony. Your mute button's in the bottom right hand corner of the screen.
I've been on the stage forever.
Go ahead, Tony.
I'm just, replying to the chap that was talking about, work that relies upon being seen in person and or not. And I just feel that it's a beautiful gesture, feeling for anyone who's making a piece, that it's not a bad thing for them to bear in mind that it should work on a matchbox as well as work on, the side of a building. I just think that it's not the be and the end all, but it's very important to think in those terms. That's it.
See you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye, Kenny. Sorry, Jeff. Unfortunately, Tony did speak up, and he found that moment. Did you have anything before Kenny is completely gone, even though he's just on mute?
Sure. I mean, I guess just a question about who art's for. It seems like a lot of what we're talking about isn't just art in the art world. And by the way, I want to say props to you guys, Kenny and Stefan, for being big personalities in a world that to encourage more people to be part of it. One of the things it needs isn't just great art, but also great and interesting personalities and writers and speakers and stuff. So props to you guys for being fun and entertaining, even if you're going at each other. I would say that from what I can tell, a lot of both of your personal brands have been built on honesty. And I know that including new people in the world, a lot of the things that scares people off isn't just, crypto people who want to know if they can buy art with crypto. It's new people, young people, people of different locations, races, genders, etc., who don't just feel the art world's unwelcoming, but they also feel like there's something they must not know that's an inner club, and that no one's going to be honest with them, and they won't know how to get in. And what I also wanted to ask isn't some of what we're talking about, and your thoughts on ownership, because with all the technical thoughts it talks about crypto and NFT and stuff, I feel like no one's quite talking about the fact that it's not just we're talking about art as a movable commodity. We're talking about further commoditizing things that weren't previously commoditized. So with the cat that was sold in crypto, one of the questions isn't just, is it bad art, good art, important art, whatever. I think it's possible it's very important. It's a meme, right? So that was just a meme. It lived and it was the public good. And then for whatever reason, which might be why KJ earlier said she was getting alt-right vibes from the world, this meme was then privatized to be sold on the free market as in an auction, when before it belonged to everyone. And what's interesting is it still belongs to everyone, right? With all this art, just like the Mona Lisa in a way belongs to everyone, memes belong to everyone. And what we're talking about instead is this, not the world of making art, loving art, and being passionate about art, but the world of who owns art. And in it, even though and how art's distributed and how art's sold, but also you're calling each other dishonest about things. And so I guess my question is, especially for you, Kenny, before you leave, are you still here, Kenny? There was I kind of shed a silent tear the other day listening to lovely, but in now under fire maybe as well, podcast Talk Art, where Talk Art interviewed you. And they were, I think the initial impetus of the interview was that Russell, one of the hosts, called you out for selling a work of art, and you fired back. And then you were on Talk Art, and actually, I think during your large personal Sotheby's sale, and he attacked people who sold art. And your response, I think, was to say, well, those people are bad people, but I, a lover of art and committed patron and custodian, can sell lots of things. But of course, those other bad folks who over there are bad. That seemed like the type of dishonesty that scares people off of the art world, and also make people want their art to live on the blockchain, move around, and so on, where, if anything, they can sort of move their art from a model of bourgeois patronage where no one knows who owns what, and it's concentrated in a few hands where no one can tell who owns anything, to a model that's even further on the market where everything is commodified, everything is sold to the highest bidder, but at least it's clear, everyone's honest, no one has to say, oh, I'm selling at Sotheby's, but of course I'm not a bad seller, all things just move cryptographically across the ledger, and so on. And what I was wondering is both, how do you think we can bring more honesty and welcomingness to the art world, and also what it means, what are some other models other than ones you guys have advanced? For example, okay, there's a blockchain model, there's a model of like buying and selling and dealers and everyone thinking about ownership and price, but of course and then everyone's saying, from the galleries to the collectors to even the galleries say, of course, art should not be about money, but pay 10,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 for this artwork. So we have like a not free market model and a free market model. Are there any other models that you guys can think of?
Yeah, well, there's a model that there is no art world. What does that mean? It's an oxymoron.
Steph, we're gonna have to move people around. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm just noticing we keep bringing people to the stage. But hi, Jerry. Yeah, go right ahead. Tony, please complete your thought. I just want to make sure that we're.
Yeah, I think it's it's like I hear the Hollywood way of doing things. There is no Hollywood. The Hollywood is a beautiful place in Los Angeles. There is no art world. What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. You get all these people trying to, do something to get into the art world. That's not what it's about. I think, there's many things that I've heard in this talk. I heard Stefan saying earlier on the importance of the gallery, and of course, we need that. We need, every Paul McCartney needed a Lennon. I mean, everyone needs everyone needs somebody else to kind of work with. I watched 4 decades ago. I watched
Tony, can I just interrupt and tell the audience who you are? So Tony Kaye is one of the most brilliant directors. He directed a movie called American History X, and he was one of the great legendary commercial directors in Los Angeles. And Tony is an artist himself. He's a producer of art, and he's one of the great creative talents in Los Angeles. I just want to give everyone an idea of who you are.
Well, thanks. I nearly forgot my. Thank you. I wish I'd have had my other phone recording those words that you said. But anyway, what I was going to say, just to underline the importance of whether or not an artist needs a partner, and of course they do, because I watched 4 decades ago a young chap in London. I happen to be middle-aged at the time. I'm sort of old now, but I watched a bloke called Damien Hirst, a young student who had met this bloke called Jay
Joplin.
Yeah, and as Damien has proved, since then, you might think that Damien doesn't need anybody, which he doesn't now, but he would never have achieved that voice had he not have had Jay, So it's just important that everyone needs other people, and however good or brilliant you are, it's just we need to work with other people. It's the Beatles. You have to think in terms of that. The Beatles weren't just 4 people playing guitars and drums. There was an engineer and a producer and a PR guy, and they all stayed together for like 10 years. A manager. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Let's bring up Jerry Gagosian and Casey if we could.
Jerry and Casey are on the stage. We have room for one more person on the stage. I'm going to move somebody around. Jeff, thank you for your contribution. I'm going to move you to the audience. I see you, Justin, Dave, Dane, Alfie, Tanya, Clayton, and etc. We will figure out a way to include you into the conversation. But we have to go with the Stefan and the Schachter do what they want. So Jerry, Casey, do you have anything you want to say? Say hi.
Hi, Casey here. Somebody was saying something about artsy. I kind of come from more of the position of a kind of a DIY gallery space. I'm not thinking about money so much. And I gotta say, Stefan, I love you, man, but like I really get sick of the conversation of money. I know it's a part of the business. I know we need it to survive in our society, but it's always money, money, money. And it's like, and Kenny was right, dude. Nobody wants to talk about the art, man. People want to talk about the money and where they're showing what's on the horizon for them, but nobody's talking about the ideas, man. And I will say this, in New York City at least, there's a bunch of galleries, making sure that people are going to start talking about the money again. And it's just lame as fuck to see, so many galleries are just so commercial. It's just stupid lame, man. And also, nobody gives a shit about artsy on my level, man. Like, nobody. So anyways, I just wanted to say that. I'm not sure how much longer I could be on here. Thanks for having me, Stefan.
Just Stefan, before you step in, I also want to give some space to Jerry, since Heidi, Jerry, whatever you want to call her, Hilda, sorry, Jerry, apologies, let me be kind. Jerry, hi, nice to meet you. This is the first time we're speaking. How would you like me to address you?
You can call me Jerry.
Okay.
This has been an interesting conversation today. Primarily because, I think Kenny and Stefan both have targets on their backs or whatever, and have been people who, for one reason or another, have not stuck to the very traditional, hierarchical, very moneyed way that normally bars you entry into the art world. That's not to say that Kenny nor Stefan don't have, wealth on their own. But what I think is very interesting is that there's so many people here for different reasons trying to listen to this conversation. People are trying to hear about what is actually the future. Some people actually want to hear about art. Some people want to hear about what's happening to the market, et cetera, et cetera. And I guess I want to piggyback off of what Casey said and just remind everyone there's a multiverse. And, nothing that the art world that I have built for myself, for example, is going to be very different from every other person's art world that they build for themselves. Like, I have people that I deal with financially. I have, spaces that I curate within. I used to have a gallery. Now I do Instagram. I'm getting ready to do sort of like a television series where we talk about art. So there's all these different art worlds, and there isn't just one. And so for people that are listening that have fear, I think that they're going to be left behind, or they have to get on some NFT train, or what if their art isn't seen in person? Like, ultimately, that's not really your problem. Like, if you're an artist and you're a maker, it's sort of like a spiritual calling. It's just your obligation to make the work. And you really don't have control over who's going to decide whether or not you're going to be in a history book, or you're going to hit it big on the NFT market, or if you're going to get picked up by a blue chip gallery. It disconcerts me and scares me. And I know that I've been one of those people in the past myself, where people sort of drink the Kool-Aid and believe that they have to be so career concerned and so career driven and so skeptical of everything and everyone that they don't get to do the thing that they actually came to do, which is to make art. And art, like Jerry Salt said, and I think Kenny was kind of tapping on into at the end, like, we've been making art since the caves. Like, we will always make art. It's sort of a natural proclivity to the human condition. It's a personality trait. It's never going to go away. And I'm actually just here as a word of encouragement to anybody that's listening to this. Follow the trend if you want to follow the trend. Be in the know if you want to be in the know. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you love art and if you get really good at making your art and communicating that, like, channels will open up for more people to receive your art and to understand your art and to appreciate your art. And sometimes that might not be on a big world stage market. You might become a local celebrity, or you might just find your friends out in the internet. You don't know. And I just wish everyone the best, and I'm enjoying this conversation.
That was kind. Thank you. Ment, you came off mute, and I definitely respect your voice, and you've been here as one of the longest, as evidenced by your position in the queue. Do you have any conversational pieces to add?
Yeah, I'll be quick. I actually got a call from my mom, so that's why I had to step out. We literally just got off the phone, so I missed a huge chunk of the conversation. But what I can input is that I feel like the internet is just changing all of the rules. Like anything that we believed in pre-internet is being disrupted, and we're seeing it every day outside of the art market, outside of the art world. So I just think more than anything, now is the time to create rules versus trying to go by any structure that existed pre-internet, because I think it's such a game changer that the average person just can't wrap their minds around the type of change that's happening. And yeah, I agree with what Jerry just said about being, if you're an artist, not being worried about taking one particular route, because like I say, now more than ever, there's an infinite amount of routes to take, and they all can coexist, in my opinion. So that's my little 2 cents. I built my art career non-traditionally, so, and I feel like a huge part of that has to do with technology and the internet. I break a lot of the rules, and I know pre-internet, I wouldn't have been able to do that as easy. So yeah, I just encourage everyone as well. Just trust the time that we're in, and sort of reevaluate everything that you've been taught, because I just think it's a unique time in history. So yeah.
Amen. Welcome to the stage, John and Rahul. And again, amen. I think a lot of people were clapping when you mentioned that. That's actually why I was using the dinging bell, because whenever I saw somebody clapping, or it sent me a text message, I did the bell so that everyone would know. But whatever. We're gonna continue. Justin, you came off of mute. This is a great time for you to chime in if you have a moment.
Thank you, Victor. Thanks for running the room. Great talk. I just had a question for Stefan about, being kind of your model as a 19th century dealer. I guess with the NFTs, and sorry to keep going to that, but this is just on my mind as far as production and distribution channels. And I'm wondering, even specific to sculpture, do you see an opportunity, attaching fabrication and, like digital printing, even 3D dimensional printing, attaching that to, a given work of art that a gallery can represent? And, I think that could be a great upside.
Picasso Bowl, man, come on.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think you'll be able to buy a 3D file, and then you'll be able to output it to you'll basically be able to get a marble sculpture printed, but you'll need a relationship with the vendor in Italy or wherever you do it. So I think there's going to be all kinds of things. I think what we're seeing now is very basic. I just got a message from an artist I work with, Petra Kortreit, who just launched an NFT in Berlin, and for 6 ETH, sold out in 30 seconds. It's like, and it's a digital file. I mean, that's crazy to me. So I think all of these things are gonna happen. Files, digital sculptures, 3D objects, audio visual things, AR things, AR files that you can basically have the right to overlay into a game environment that is specifically yours. Assets that you can webcast onto your TV. We're just at the very beginning of this, and there's going to be so much exploration. I think what happens is there is going to need to be production assets involved, just like in the film industry. Right now it's early, just like the early films were, 2 pieces of film cut together, no sound, black and white, subtitles not even there. And I think this is where we are in terms of NFT art. So eventually it develops, and you need production budgets. There's complex elements that basically resolve in order to provide a service to collectors and to actually enable artists to actually realize things that they want to realize in the physical world, but also using the digital space to do that. So I think the landscape's wide open. I think it's super interesting, and I think it's we're at the dial-up modem stage of this. We're like It'll be a few years, but 5 years down the line, we're going to be in the broadband thing. But it's very powerful, provides liquidity to artists at scale, and it's fantastic, and it's super exciting. And just something someone said earlier, there have been $100 million of NFTs bought in the last 6 months or something. I saw a stat. But there's been $2 trillion of gains in cryptocurrencies. So it's really just the tip of the iceberg.
Cool, man. They sound like really great ideas.
And I'm sorry to talk about money, but, and again, Hildy and Casey bring up good points about art. Whether we like it or not, no matter how we feel about things, money is a requirement to the production of art. Now, it might be a little bit of money, might be a lot of money, but an artist needs a studio. They need pigment, piano. They need materials. They need computers. They need tools. Tools cost money. So this conversation to try and extract money and art, I think is kind of like a fruitless and although maybe a good intentioned idea is impossible. But when one embraces them as coexisting and living in a unified way, one can basically get rid of the moral baggage that essentially prevents the pragmatic sort of integration and expansion of creative production. And this is something that is sort of, for me, central to like my thinking. It's like, don't worry about the sort of the dreamlike utopian ideas about the separation of art and money. They're utopic ideas, and utopian cities fail. I mean, we look at the utopian city in Brazil, Brasilia, which was this utopic city. It was a failure in all respects. And I think we like to think in terms of utopic ideas and visions, but oftentimes they prevent us from thinking in more pragmatic ways, which are at the end of the day more beneficial to everyone involved.
Hey, are they still writing about how much Picasso was selling for at auction? Or what made Picasso important? His selling price?
Well, Picasso was driving a Rolls Royce in 1920. The guy was a baller from the minute he was born.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I don't know what they're talking about, but Picasso was a baller from the beginning. He would fill a house with art. He would close it up, go to the next house. He had dealers like Conweiler would buy material from. Picasso was just a baller from day one. Are those in
the museum essays? How big of a baller he was, or was it about the work?
Yes, all you need to do is look at a picture of him in his Rolls, and you need to look at him on the beach. He's a baller.
Yeah. I think that the thing is about money. Nobody, not the richest dealer, not the richest gallery owner, Larry Gagosian, nobody, Damien, nobody goes into the art to make money. Nobody does. Nobody does.
Tony,
because
Tony, that's not true.
Let me finish. People go into this world because they're driven to it. They have a passion for it. They got to do it. Now, once you're in it, you got bills to pay. And money is energy. Money is energy. Money is good. Greed is not good. Money is energy. And you need it. Everyone needs it. And if you're an artist and you're not making money from your personal art at the beginning, you have to subsidize that with another job. If you're a dealer and you're not making money, you have to subsidize it. And actually, the United States of America, I mean, and this is a preposterous thing I'm about to say, but without Joseph Duvane, there might not be any art here. Of course, there would be, but he understood, like 100 years ago, that the great art was in Europe and the money was in America, and there you go. But Joseph Duvane didn't go into art to make money. He went into it because he was driven to this higher realm. His parents sold these little blue and white stupid things, and he wanted to do something. He was drawn to the beauty of the great Italian painters and all that shit. So no one goes into it for the money. Some people go into it and make a ton of fucking money, and great. And we all need it. We want money. We want it.
John, I see that John wants to say something right now, and then I just also want to let Justin know if you have one last comment, chime in, because I'll be moving you to the audience soon. KJ, I also might move you as well, just because to make space, but you know you can always come up and you can text me or whatever.
Thank you, Victor. Yeah, no, I just think this is, I don't know. I just happen to love, I come from an entrepreneurial background. I love Stefan's gospel. I don't know. I just think, I have really genuine, that's interesting, Tony. Duveen, I've read all about Duveen, and, I would say, like the Picasso, he was a baller dealer too. And, I just think that there really is something, forget about the dollar amounts, but the importance of having, a team that can produce and, prop up these things and distribute culture and create culture, even on a small level, working with some artists. I have a very small situation in kind of a tourist town between New York and Boston, and even just, a few $1,000s here and there to realize works, to have them printed, mounted, framed, and market that stuff. And, I just think on a large scale, the analogy about the film and all that production, it's totally necessary, and you can have this passion and calling to this higher plane, which I think is true. Everyone kind of goes there because this is such a risky place. Everyone's also talking about these big people and big numbers. There's a ton of people out there, day to day, like myself, very small scale, have a nice house, have my dogs, what have you, small footprint, and I'm, driven to this world spiritually, or however you want to say it. But I also want to make money and, help out myself, my family, and other artists, and realize this stuff and get it out there. And when you have an entrepreneurial mind that with, great strategy and production, I just don't see what the argument is and what's wrong with that. And thank you guys for a great room.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Justin. John, do you have something to piggyback right off of that?
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about what community you're entering this conversation from. And I've heard the word everyone and nobody thrown around quite a bit, and I think it's a bit much to sort of like make blanket statements about everybody and nobody.
So how would you dial us in then?
Well, so I mean, one way I could think is when I was living in San Francisco in the 90s, and that was a really it kind of was more of a democratic place for artists to identify themselves and to kind of like build followings, but that was like IRL. This is before the internet. This is before social media, and basically it was people on the street that decided whether or not you were a good artist or not. And it was a very craft-oriented, process-oriented community. This is kind of like really different from when I moved to New York City in 2003, where you understand that the role of the critic, the role of the curator, the media, all these other vectors play into your success as an artist. So I kind of had to relearn or re-understand my role. I'm a graphics designer, and sometimes I make art, so I can have this conversation really from the sidelines, and I feel lucky about that sometimes. But I think there was a question earlier brought up about the role of the critic, and it kind of was brushed off and it went back to the market. So I'm wondering if there is any real validity to what people are saying. I've heard a lot of gallerists in Stefan's room say stuff about how important it is for an artist's life, or their work, to be sort of stewarded and sort of tended to and guided within the art world. Is what we're saying that with this NFT thing, that a lot of those middle people are going to go away? Like, what do people think about the role of the...
I think critics are bullshit. Dude, it's bullshit, absolute bullshit. There's quality of writing, yes. Some of them write beautifully well. Do they know about does an art critic know about art? No, fuck all. Does a movie critic know about movies? No, they know nothing. And you have because none of us know. We don't know what's going to be, big in 5 years. Stefan mentioned, not even him, who's like got a gallery, he's an expert on art. Nobody knew that Japanese bloke was going to be, kind of huge. Nobody knows anything. Sure, some people, Picasso, make it right out the firing line because there's nobody like it. There's no painter.
The only one thing I would say is that within the mechanism of public relations, which if you said those two words in our world 10 years ago, people would laugh at you. Now there are people in our world who are doing public relations. And with the market so large and saturated, people need to get written about for them to be taken seriously. That's just what I learned being in New York City.
Yeah, I mean, I talk shit. I'm an outsider in my business. I'm an outsider of the indie side, of the studio side. I'm an outsider of my fucking self. So, but I know there's quality. There's a qualification within writing, the way a critic writes. Yes, you can say that's an amazing piece of writing, but do they know about what they're writing about? No, it's just their personal taste. And more often than not, they don't know shit.
I wish Kenny was back here to...
My favorite writer right now is this guy who doesn't even have an Instagram. I'm actually going to go have a meeting with him after this. He runs a thing called the Manhattan Art Review. No Instagram. You have to search. He's on Twitter, I think. But I highly suggest, because I was complaining the other day, I was like, man, there's no bad critiques of New York art shows. It's all puff pieces. It's all puff pieces. It's all PR puff pieces. And then my one friend said, hey, you should check out this guy. He writes called the Manhattan Art Review. I mean, he is brutal, man. But I think it's coming from a very educated and critical background. So if anybody is interested,
Casey, yes, is that something you could share with me via DM?
I don't know how to DM on here.
Yeah, it's through Instagram. You just tap on my Instagram. Yeah. So long story short, everybody, there's been a lot of. Definitely, Jerry.
Can I add one more thing?
Definitely,
before
Jerry.
I go, because yes. I think.
Jerry, you can go next. I definitely just need to reset the room and just please.
Oh, sure.
Casey, please hit me with that. I'm noticing that there's a lot of people and a lot of questions coming in through the DM. Please send those, and I'll send them directly to Stefan and Schachter for next month. And then, yes, I had more to say, but Jerry, please go ahead, and then maybe when you leave, I'll continue.
Okay, I'll try to be brief and maybe more concise than I was last time. I appreciate what Tony's. I love everybody's opinion here because. To each their own. And I think when I last finished my statement, somebody said oh, that's very nice. And what I mean to say is, and I know that we're all here to figure out new futuristic modes of production and the way that the art world's going to move and with the market and all of this, but there is an oversaturation on the market. And there are all of these gatekeepers who are suddenly opening the floodgates and saying everything is good because everything is for sale, essentially, and then creating these sort of fake markets of exclusivity where we all know that those are not actually real. The exclusivity is just based purely on how much money you're willing to spend, how far you're willing to go into a gallery's program, how much you buy from a specific dealer before you're able to get that Robin F. Williams